Corporate funding is provided by the following. Foundation funding is provided by.
With over 40 states offering similar net metering credits, why aren't America's rooftops crammed with solar panels?
The first question, of course, as a consumer is, how much is this going to cost me? That's the sticker shock. For a normal house, you need between 2 kilowatts and 4 kilowatts of photovoltaics. And this is going to run you someplace between about $15,000 to $28,000.
And if you have a large house and add solar hot water panels as the Lords did, the price can go even higher.
The active solar elements on the house cost about $50,000.
And it's the high cost of solar power that underlies most arguments against it.
Right now, solar panels are not very efficient and they're expensive.
The only people that have those solar collectors are really very wealthy people.
But is this really true?
Well, last I checked, we weren't very wealthy.
The Reeveses are a two-income, middle-class family with a budget that won't allow many extravagances.
We're kind of building our home. We have a son who was in school, and you know, we have a lot of other things that we could be doing that we need to do.
But when they learned the state of Massachusetts would pay half the cost of their panels, they jumped at the opportunity.
I don't think we would have done it without the state support. No.
The Massachusetts grant made what would have been a $24,000 investment $12,000. 14 states currently offer similar incentives.
Oh, man.
And then there's the additional benefit of net metering.
This was the bill for this month, and it's $129, and it probably would be double that last year about this time.
On average, Phil Reeves now pays less than half what he once paid for electricity. He doesn't save as much as Bill Lord, since he doesn't have as many panels. But saving money was never his only goal.
I know that I'm reducing my carbon footprint on the world. I feel great about having the panels installed.
A sentiment shared by virtually everyone who goes solar.
It's not about payback. It's about first treading lightly on the environment, not using fossil fuels to do the work that other homes require fossil fuels to use. And over the last 11 years, 70 tons of CO2 have not been put into the atmosphere because we've been using solar power.
Power plants that use fossil fuels are responsible for 40% of the carbon dioxide pumped into the atmosphere every day. And rising CO2 levels are a major cause of global warming.
Human society is burning coal, oil, and gas to get energy. And the result of that burning is carbon dioxide. The CO2 level has never been this high for millions of years. Now, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, and what that means is it is very good at absorbing heat that is emitted from the Earth's surface. And sometime in the next 50 years, we're literally going to go off the scale here. The Earth's atmosphere acts like a greenhouse, absorbing some of that heat energy and radiating it back, ultimately increasing the surface temperature of the Earth by a small amount.
And this rise is contributing to severe weather conditions that seem to be growing worse each year.
The expected consequences of climate change, I think many people are familiar with. Flooding in some places, droughts in other places, melting of glaciers which cause sea level to rise, bigger, more powerful hurricanes, and a variety of other unusual climate effects. But what actually scares me are the unexpected ones. It's the surprises that really hurt people.
Concern over global warming has helped boost panel sales 600% since 2000. As more people try to do their part to stave off the crisis. But all the solar panels in America produce only 2 coal plants worth of electricity. an amount not even close to meeting the power requirements of a major city. And more power is what every city needs, especially when the weather turns hot and air conditioning use soars.
A dangerous heat wave is making people miserable from coast to coast. And
more than 100 deaths are being blamed on 12 days of extreme heat.
Triple-digit temperatures of 120 degrees in some places.
And that is putting a terrible strain on the power companies and the people who depend on them.
How long were the lines out?
It's July 25th, 2006, week 2 of a record-setting Los Angeles heat wave. And nowhere is the heat more intense than in the grid control room at Southern California Edison and on its grid control manager, Tom Botello. It's Botello's job to direct the electricity generated by the region's power plants to homes and businesses, traffic signals and hospitals, and everywhere in between. But the very nature of electricity makes this all a high-stakes poker game where the losers could be us.
You can't store electricity like you can store lots of other things like bananas or copper or other commodities. And that's why you're always going to need a grid manager. And these are very courageous men and women who are asked to do the impossible, to predict tomorrow or the next hour how much electricity supply we're going to need based on how many people might turn on their air conditioner or how many factories might suddenly decide to go into high output mode.
Although Botello tries not to show it, this is about as stressful as a job can get, as the heat wave is forcing SoCal's 13 million customers to use more electricity to keep things cool. And this is when most blackouts occur.
What causes blackouts is when there is insufficient supply on the system to serve the customer demand.
The current heat wave is producing dozens of localized blackouts that are being blamed for scores of deaths and millions in economic losses.
The elevators died with the power, leaving one man trapped inside.
But things could get worse if grid managers cannot find additional electricity to keep ahead of the demand.
When we hit that summer afternoon at 4 o'clock and everybody's going home and turning on their air conditioners, our system load shoots up.
Although SoCal has a small amount of solar power feeding the grid, it's only a drop in the bucket. So managers call for additional electricity from their 30 natural gas plants and from the state's 2 nuclear reactors. And they start buying power from neighboring states that use coal-fired plants, by far the worst CO2 emitters. With the city at risk of a major power failure, global warming will just have to wait.
The reality is that today, with available technology, you need fossil fuels to have the kinds of fast response units that can follow load and maintain our system in balance.
They lost a couple of substations. Looks like from the map.
Despite their best efforts, grid managers are running out of ways to combat this summer's power crisis. In a bold move, Tom Botello decides to ask certain factories, office buildings, and schools to go offline voluntarily to conserve power.
The entire Western grid could be vulnerable if we did not take these emergency actions to disconnect certain portions of our system, non-critical customers, for an hour at a time.
But with more high temperatures on the way, no one knows if this measure will work.
Relay lost per down.
If it doesn't, the city faces the dangerous prospect of massive blackouts and the inevitable chaos that would follow.